Hello and welcome to this edition of Defacto Review, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories shaping Mongolia. Here with us tonight is journalist and commentator and economist Jargal Defacto. Welcome.
Good evening, good evening.
And I am Milena Mendes. We are live on Facebook at V Television and we love to hear your thoughts. So on Twitter, use #Jargal_Defacto. Coming up on the show tonight. Parliament passes a budget promising higher growth and less debt. Mongolia's border jam in the desert is dangerous for drivers and the economy. GIA chief Bet Khurts is under the spotlight as he stands for ambassador appointment. Mongolian sumo champ apologizes after media reports beer bottle assault on fellow wrestler. We start tonight talking about the Parliament approving the 2018 state budget this week, predicting higher growth and less debt, with more tax revenue coming into the government's coffers. The budget predicts 4.2% growth for the next year, compared with last year's 1%, according to Google News. It also predicts a 9.5% cut in the deficit in 2018, from this year. The Minister of Finance said he expected more activity on stock exchange, lower interest rates from banks, more fiscal stability, and 607 billion to group more in tax revenue. The government agreed to some tax hikes as part of the International Monetary Fund's 5.5 billion economic bailout to protect the Tugruk's foreign exchange value and relieve debt pressure. Well, we know that some past budgets have been overly optimistic in revenue and debt prediction. So, Jargal, what do you think about this one? Is it more of the same?
This budget, well, what happened was they have approved budget for 2018, and yet they have to amend it again. Second time with the initial, it is third time, approve a budget for 2017. They had to approve by our law November 15th the budget for next year, so they were in a hurry, and because they know that they can amend it down the road again. So the important issue is not they have adopted, but the approved. But the important issue is why they have to approve again or amend again the budget for 2017, because it's a principal issue. What happened was the state had received from planned 500 billion Mongolian tugrik, more than planned. So this additional revenue have to be redistributed. And my concern is Mongolian government have also another reason to redistribute, because this is new government first, and the new promises, other things, so they immediately want to redistribute all of this 500 billion tugriks. But in the normal economy, or in the normal circumstances, we could have this 500 billion tugriks immediately go to decrease our foreign debt, because it will ease our payment for interest rate. You know, normal person, even normal household, if you have more revenue, you will try first of all to decrease your payment, the debt, right?
Debt.
In case of the government, they could buy back their expensive debt. On bond, you can buy it. But nobody is talking about buying on bond in Mongolia first. That's the principal issue. And meanwhile, they have to amend it also because, and this 2018 budget is also very optimistic, because they have recently raised another bond called Girege bond, Horlde bond. We have now two bonds. This new government, I mean, since last election, we have two already bonds. But they are not only extending their terms, but also in first case they have increased the interest rate, the second case a little bit decreased, but in general, Mongolia have not reducing their debt. Vice versa, they keep increasing. So they are paying foreign debt with foreign more debt. And nobody talks about that. And meanwhile, they are getting more than 100 million or 200 million US dollars
Wow.
than to repay they needed for the repayment. So that's the situation where we are having more and more debt. With that circumstance, with the situations, in particular, if Turkey is becoming weaker, then it's very hard to pay the foreign debt in hard currency because all our foreign debt is increasing. So that's the first thing I thought about the budget. Second one is about the coal export. We do now much less than we were planning. Next year, again, less planning. So in that circumstance, it's very hard to have more revenue to budget unless they increase again taxes. So let's see what will happen. But one thing is sure, that now they will approve the amendments for 2017 budget, and they have already approved this 2018 budget, but they will, I'm sure, they will amend again.
Right.
And whether it will be amended or not will depend on how long this government will last, this cabinet. So tomorrow we have People's Party's Congress for 2 days. And these, after 2 days, if they will elect the current prime minister as the head of party, I think this government will survive for 2 years, remaining 2 years. Otherwise, it will not survive. That means, again, they will change another budget, you see. That's the situation with new budget.
It's very unstable, but so what can we say that are the government's top fiscal priorities right now?
Well, this distribution of 500 billion to each somehow to their own constituency under many reasons. You know, when they have more money than they planned, instead of repaying debt or buying back their own bond, they usually distribute, unfortunately. If we had, say, a sovereign wealth fund that we were talking a long time, if we have that, then it would not be any need to amend the budget, because if you receive more than planned, you save it and then use it when you have less income. So that's the problem.
It's a balance. And what challenges must Mongolia still overcome in boosting economic activity and finances? Because problems there are a lot in our economy, unfortunately.
The problem is diversification of economy. That we should find such a way through competition. But unfortunately, this is not the case. We have more and more, in particular in mining, state-owned companies. They are becoming into more and more debt. And that debt deficit, when they cannot pay, they are paid from the budget. But the budget is borrowing domestically and abroad. When budget is borrowing, government is borrowing large at the high interest rate, the bank don't give money to economy. They buy government bonds. So instead of, we should have a less foreign debt, that's the budget. Secondly, if we receive that debt, it should be used for better competition in new fields like IT, and so which don't depend on China. We unfortunately depend a lot on China, who is closing half the border for this truck coal,
right.
which was one of the reasons why they had a modest budget for next year. But this is more politically motivated issue. We will talk about when we talk about the transport. Right,
which is right now. So Thomson Reuters this week spotlighted the thousands of heavy-duty trucks laden with coal inch along a cluttered highway in the Gobi Desert towards the Chinese border. The journey can take more than a week, with truckers cooking, eating, and sleeping in vehicles. The long delays at the Gashon-Suktai Gantz mud crossing, the main transit point between the two countries, is undercutting gains made in the coal market as fleets for trucks carrying coal from Gobi mines to China and piling up at the border. Why is this happening? Such long delays at the border. We know that China is increasing the the fiscalization at the border, but why is this still happening?
Well, initial reason they were explaining was there were certain illegal goods were smuggling through the trucks from this Chaganghat, where the location called Chaganghat, they would bring called first there and put there on the ground, and then another truck would come and take it to the border, which was closer, there was special line, etc. It was faster. Then Chinese said that there was smuggling, so they stopped it, that line, and now all line comes from the longer line. We had a short line, long line before, and smoothly, relatively more coal was going through the border easily. When it's closed now, this line is keep increasing because nobody is now downloading there and then bringing there. So this is increased on one side. On the other side, there were 4 gates. The cars will go through in the border, but now China closed 2 of them. So they cut that line, now it has increased twice,
Wow.
and then they have cut 2 doors, gates. The government, new minister said he will negotiate with the Chinese government, but what I do read is more politically motivated and other actions from Chinese side. So what does it say is now Mongolia have to make principled decisions. Either we're sitting on China like this, and we will not work with China, or we will work with China like other countries, who it's the only largest market, and very hard to go without China for Mongolia. So if we to work with the China, then we shouldn't do things that makes China unhappy, because not only Mongolia, but even UK, Germany, they gets penalty when they do politically things that China doesn't want, the other countries do. So it is a principal issue for us, and we need to solve it quicker.
How does it affect Mongolians' economy?
Well, that's an issue. It's already affecting. It's seriously damaging our export. That means seriously damaging our revenue, budget revenue, which in its turn preventing a lot of social projects keep moving. So we depended on China on that. And no, it's a time to think about it on one side. On the other side, we should think about more startups, as we have talked, more businesses that don't depend on location. And there are many. Mm-hmm. And more businesses come into the world using internet, using information and telecommunication. The revolution is advantage. There are cars now going without drivers, for example. Applications you can make a lot. So we get maybe training our youngsters in school with a special policy on more highlighting on IT, etc. And we need also, of course, train our teachers to be more advanced in this field.
And do you think the government's efforts are going to resolve this issue? How do you see that?
Well, as neighbor country, China probably, when our new minister comes, in particular, I understand China is expecting our president visiting China. It looks like not that soon. I don't see he's planning or announcing his trip after Russia, first trip to Russia, and then ideally he's to go to China, meet Chinese leadership, mm-hmm. like a courtesy of 2 neighbor countries where the power is completely changed. And it's important for both countries' relations, in particular when you have a new president of a country, right, for 4 years, potentially. Maybe another 4 years. So that's what we should do, and we are waiting. And hopefully with that visit, some things will be easier, because there is certain preoccupation or perception that somehow our president's too much closeness to North, instead of balancing 2 neighbors, may damage or it will be reflected on the relations in between 2 countries with China.
Right. Thank you for explaining this to our viewers. And we're going to move on to our next topic. The head of the General Intelligence Agency, Khurts, has made strong accusations about public officials regarding a secret arms deal with North Korea as he stands for parliamentary review for his appointment of ambassador to South Korea. Khurts has been the head of Mongolia's intelligence agency since 2013. His name made headlines in 2011 when he went to a German prison after being extradited from London to face murder charges from a Mongolian family living there, who say Khurts is responsible for the death of their father. The former spy is now being closely examined and he's up for the ambassador's post. NewsMN reported that during his questioning by Parliament's Standing Committee for Security and Foreign Policy, Khurts fought back by accusing former Economic Minister Biebold of selling arms to North Korea for 300,000. The session was adjourned with no decision on his appointment yet. So please tell us more about Khurts and whether he's fit to hold office in Mongolia given his background.
Mr. Bold was Foreign Minister, Defense Minister, and Mr. Bold, Law Bold, immediately neglected or immediately said that he did not do that, and it was certain attempt by other officials before, and which never happened. So now the question is, whom of them are talking the truth?
Telling the truth.
And with the Mr. Khurts case, he is talking about all these illegal things, if it is approved, right? He said that only in the case when these parliament members have refused his nominations to be an ambassador. So Mr. Khurts was talking about this potentially criminal things, if approved, only when his interests is limited, and they did not approve these 2-3 people, his nominations. It was at the Standing Committee of Parliament. Now, when they brought the issue to the Parliament sessions, plenary sessions, there, by initiative of another 2-3 Parliament members, it will be now open public hearing of this case, which is very good for further democracy in this country. But as the Russians say, that there is no bad thing is happening with some positive things, okay? So the positive thing is here is democracy is working, okay, limpy, but it works. That's why we will have open hearing. We have a more light what's going on in Mongolian government corridors inside. Now it's like we are looking down at the iceberg, which is what we need. The bad news is our politicians' moral degradations. So, in case if Mr. Khurts is right, these people will be criminals. If they are right, Mr. Khurts will be criminals because it's lying. Mm-hmm. So in both cases, in either cases, I think we should see more democracy. In either cases, Mr. Khurts has a chance to publicly speak about whatever he knows about parliament members from tomorrow, probably from Wednesday, because tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, People's Party have one Congress, okay? Yeah. So Thursday or Friday, the Parliament plenary sessions will have sessions. And at that meeting, we are expecting Mr. Khurts talking straight, bluntly. Otherwise, it will be his last chance because he is already freed from his positions as the General Intelligence Agency. And now, anyway, he will go either to Korea or to prison. So he is to be very frank, to tell everything what's happening in Mongolian governance. But one thing is positive, that is governance now, because it's democratic basis, because this opposition, because this whole fight, they will clash with each other, open, and as a result, Mongolians will know whom to vote for and against for next election. And democracy works in the way that we change the power through elections.
Right.
So we have 2 years, and we'll have 2 years to understand exactly who is right. But the last point we should know is our justice system. However, our justice system can divide this, can reveal the truth or not. That's we have some doubt. Why? Because recently all police departments, chiefs, all were replaced by a new president. By the request of new president, they are replaced. So when justice system are completely changed when the president comes, one new president comes, then it's very hard to completely believe that this justice will work. And now there was a case, remember, spying prime minister or deputy prime minister was spying himself. No justice system, no judiciary had given us right information. And I'm afraid it will be the same case after Mr. Khurts will reveal many truth, many informations about corruptions of their politicians.
Truth or not.
Truth or not, yeah, exactly. He will reveal, and then our justice system should tell us who is right and who is wrong. That's what we were waiting. That's, I see, beyond that just open hearing.
What about his replacement at the GIA?
Well, now all these positions are reflected or proposed by the president. These powers, and without president proposal, they are nominated by the parliament, but president propose on candidate. So let's see what is going to happen. Though maybe he's not, I'm not sure, I don't really have whether, he was replaced actually by ambassador who was in Korea before, so somehow they have switched their jobs.
Well, we're going to move on to our last topic tonight about a sumo scandal. Mongolian sumo grand champion Haruma Fuji apologized on Tuesday for injuring a fellow wrestler who media said suffered a fractured skull after being hit with a beer bottle in the latest scandal to engulf the closed, hierarchical sumo society, Reuters reported. Haruma Fuji hit Taka Noah in the head last month at a party of sumo wrestlers in Mongolia. Public broadcaster NHK quoted unnamed sources affiliated with Japan Sumo Association saying, "The stable master has already reported the incident to police," Kyodo News Agency said. It was not immediately clear if Haruma Fuji would be charged. So what do you think about this story in general?
Well, sad story, but very typical. We are too explosive. We very proud and sometimes getting angry very fast compared to Japan. In Japan, it turned out whatever fight is happening, first, both sides have penalty, up to 3 months prison. Second, whoever is involved will have more penalty. In that way, by law, Japanese don't fight. In our law, no. Probably misuse that law. And plus, we former nomads now need to discuss things with more debate, not fight.
Exactly.
That's the general culture among people we need, and also in particular with politicians. So I always encourage this informed debate among people. But in this particular case, the guy was angry, immediately released that anger, and then hit his colleague with a beer bottle. Very unfortunate case, and I think we should learn more to be more patient. That's how I read.
Especially when there is alcohol involved. And do you think these athletes all right, they are humans. They have feelings and emotions and they get frustrated. But how do you think these Mongolian athletes are settling an example to the Mongolian youth?
Unfortunately, of course, not very
Not
in
a
a
very
good
good
way. And, you know, Mongolians, sumo wrestlers are dominating that tournament for almost 20 years now. And it will be very bad for the followers, other young Mongolian sumo wrestlers there, as the Japanese will be now less respecting. People just fighting and too much giving emotions and, you know, don't. In general, Japanese are very considerate people. First of all, consider others, then themselves. We almost vice versa, so.
And we cannot forget they are hosting the next Olympics, right? Well, we're getting to the end of tonight's show. Do you have any final words for us
Well,
tonight?
I would like to thank you for spending some time on Sunday night with us. And we try to be independent source of analysis for events happening in Mongolia. We are very happy that you watch us, and please also you can read Defacto Gazeta also every week in English. You can subscribe it on our website, jargaldefacto.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for staying with us tonight, and I hope you have a great week. Have a good night, Mongolia. Bye-bye.